In World War II, thousands of American civilians were captured by the Japanese in the Philippines. Many of them spent more than 3 years in prison camps. Hundreds were children and teenagers, and this is what their life was like. This is Santo Tomas internment camp in Manila, where the people you are about to meet were imprisoned for 3 years. Because they were American citizens, their rights were taken away. Jane Donner, captured at 17, liberated at 20. Edward McCreary, captured at 13, liberated at 16. Curtis Brooks, captured at 13, liberated at 16. Karen Kearns, captured at 9, liberated at 12.
The Japanese entered the city on the 2nd of January, and Americans were being picked up and taken for internment. And then I think within a few days we learned that they were being taken to, Santo Tomas University for internment.
I was in a room with about 40 women and children.
When we were first interned, there were some 700 men in the gymnasium with us, and I think there were 4 toilets. And that kind of ratio is brought home to you much more than some of the more esoteric anxieties of physical violence and so on. Waiting in line for the use of the John is a trying occupation.
All kinds of people in Santo Tomas. It just wasn't one group of people. We had teachers, we had farmers, we had college professors, we had bankers, we had accountants, we had, people who, heavens knows, maybe they were gamblers and prostitutes. We had everything you can imagine. We had entertainers. And these are the people that kind of rounded up. They were executives. They knew what to do, and they got organized. They said, they can't treat us like this. We're going to form a committee. We're going to go to the Japanese and insist that they treat us. We have to get showers, and we don't want malaria, and we don't want disease, and we're going to get our nurses and doctors organized, and we could establish our gardening habits, and we had people on agricultural detail, so to speak, who were planting Telenum and various native greens.
Every woman and teenage girl who did not have a regular camp job was assigned to vegetable duty.
Unfortunately, there were also teachers interned, and so school began very quickly. We were all in school, and our schoolrooms were behind buildings, just anywhere.
We had sports. We had quite a bit of sports, almost entirely self-organized.
So the teenagers in camp were living the time and the moment, and for much of the time, it was one long summer camp with some school. The teachers were there. But we had sports, we had games, we had cliques.
We were not supposed to watch air raids. We were strictly forbidden to look out the window during air raids. Of course, we all did. But the Japanese soldier saw me. And for about 5 or 10 minutes, I looked down the barrel of a rifle at a very angry Japanese soldier. And yes, it seemed very threatening.
Told the Japanese would hurt us if we didn't bow. We tried to just stay away from them.
There were 3 meals a day. There was cornmeal mush in the morning, while that lasted. Then it was rice mush. Then there was a lunch meal, and then the main meal at dinner time. The 3rd year of internment, the situation changed, the food supplies decreased, the contact with the outside was discontinued, stopped altogether. And so that gradually in the 3rd year of internment, the quantity and the quality of the food declined until for about the last 6 months it became almost a starvation diet. And the last few months was nothing but a starvation. Rice with a few vegetables, very little to supplement it.
The women who looked so tired and disheveled and had stopped caring about their looks because they were so tired and weak.
My father, who weighed 155 pounds going in, weighed 84. Every morning I would wonder if I'd look at him, he was pale blue-gray. Is he still alive?
The ravages of malnutrition hit us all, and primarily beriberi, the lack of vitamin B.
I did not develop beriberi until the very end. My feet and ankles began to swell. But you would see all these men mostly walking around. They could hardly put one step ahead of one another, and they would be walking on these very swollen ankles and feet, and their hands would swell. In some cases, they had dry beriberi where they would just shrivel up. With wet beriberi, many of them, of course, the fluid would accumulate and they would die of cardiac beriberi.
My dad died of beriberi.
I remember one of my greatest pleasure was just sucking a warm stone and it tasted good. There was a sense of dirt and mineral on it. Maybe I was getting something from that.
She said what was the fresh grass, and then her family would boil it and they would drink the green water. It was getting very, very desperate.
Another 2 months, and we would have been goners, most of us. But as it is, the cavalry came just in time.
Santo Tomas University, Jap prison camp, opens its gates to 3,700 internees. Hard-driving American forces sweeping the enemy from Manila free men, women, and children held prisoners during the 3 years of Jap occupation. One of General MacArthur's first missions is to call upon the happy internees. During the general's visit, Jap forces still in the city train their guns on the university. Many of the helpless internees were wounded by the enemy's fire. Of those liberated, the adults show all signs of malnutrition. Mothers and fathers fed their children most of the meager rations furnished by the enemy. Fuel for cooking and warmth is very scarce, but these undernourished heroes find strength to complete their tasks.
Many of the parents have starved. A typical example of this is one of our most popular families, the Brooks family. There were 4 of them, father, mother, and 2 young boys, twins. The father, a few weeks ago, died of starvation. The mother was killed by a Jap shell. Barney? Curtis. Oh, you're Curtis. Well, Curtis, I guess you know how everybody in this camp feels about the swell way you fellas have taken your troubles here.
Yeah.
And, Barney, that goes for you, too. You've been a couple of swell American boys, and all 3,700 of us want you to know about that. And this will all be just a bad dream to you after a while, boys.
Yeah, I hope it'll be that way.
Shortly after liberation, we were still getting the rice mush we'd gotten before. But each internee, as they got their rice mush, was handed a can of evaporated milk to go with the mush. And Harriet, I felt like the richest person on earth with that can of milk. That was all for me, all for breakfast, and the whole can. And I looked at awe and wonder at that can of evaporated milk. I still do.
So we went through camp, most of us, I would say, in a different way than others. It was shocking to people who read about prison camps, a very normal existence.
I was suddenly a little ghetto kid running around in rags and starving with hundreds of friends or people my age in the same boat. And it was marvelous because I didn't think that it was unusual. My parents were deprived. I was liberated, so to speak.
Liberation saved these teenagers, not only from starvation, but from extermination. In 1944, the Japanese War Ministry issued a standing order concerning all Allied prisoners. This document, on record at the U.S. National Archives, states, "It is the aim not to allow the escape of a single one, to annihilate them all, and not to leave any traces.